Richard, thank you for the work on this one. I know this has been long coming. Thanks to the council for the work you all are doing as well for this one. I mean, I think it's, but I know it's over 13 years of discussion. A lot of moving parts on properties, pieces of it, missing a bid on the one, and you're sticking with it, getting back. So it's paid off. It looks unbelievable, and I know every bit of the staff at Clyde had something to do with that.
It's been fun.
All the departments, thank you.
Now the real fun really begins.
Yeah, right.
When does it kick off?
So yeah, I was gonna just wrap up here. Couple things related to that. We're looking at probably a mid to late June. We were just talking to Hanson before the meeting started. We want to wait till we get some construction equipment out there. So once he has a chance to talk to the contractors, we'll get a date. I'll work with Matt. And we'll get a date on your calendar for a groundbreaking ceremony. Also, based on some of the feedback Councilman McCoy had last time, we prepared this handout that we're going to start printing these, taking them to local businesses. We're actually going to go out nights and weekends and start handing them out to people so they know about the project. Actually, I was just talking to Amanda and Catherine, and they said people are starting to hear about this. They're getting excited about it. So it's already getting out in the community. So we'll do that. We'll also have a 4x8 foot sign that has the same information on it that we'll put up along Alice Avenue here probably next week. So really kind of really doing the push now to get the community to know what's going on, where they can go during the summer. So stay tuned for that groundbreaking date, and then pass these out if you have more.
There had to be 150 people out there.
It's incredible. Yeah.
Meals.
Mhm. Nights and weekends. Nights and weekends are completely packed out. It's incredible.
Okay.
Thanks.
So any further discussion? We had a motion and a second, and I think Jay Blue was back online. I don't know if there's anything he needs.
No, he was just there in case you had specific questions.
All right, very good. Will council please vote? And will clerk please post that vote? And that passes by a vote of 4-0. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. We'll see you at the groundbreaking.
Next up, Catherine.
Mayor, council. Do we have the slides? Beautiful.
I can fix.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. So before you is a request for approval of a site plan amendment to add to the existing Weisenberger Investments office. It's located at 16,400 Sheridan Avenue. The proposed amendment includes an additional 1,035 square feet of office space and approximately 223 square feet of patio space that's going to be added to the north side of their facade. That was a good signal or anything. So it is designated up at that very top there, right along Sheridan Avenue. Currently, stormwater, utility, landscaping, and open space requirements remain in compliance, including the proposed addition. No further parking stalls are required, as the original construction of the existing building did include additional parking stalls than what were necessary at the time. That actually covers the required parking stalls that are needed for the 1,000 square foot addition space. The architectural facade of the building addition is going to utilize primarily brick and stone applications that will replicate and extend the current building's architectural style. Notice and posting of the site was done in accordance with our typical requirements. Staff has received inquiries into what was going on and why it was posted, but we have not received any written communication regarding the proposal. The proposal did go before Planning and Zoning Commission at the regular May 6th meeting, and the recommendation was to approve the site plan amendment with a vote of 5-0 in favor. Staff does not have any further comments to be addressed by the applicant and does recommend approval for the site plan amendment. I'm also here for any
Questions?
Approval.
Motion is second to approve the site plan amendment. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? And that passes by a vote of 4-0. Thank you, Catherine. Next up, we have some fire EMS collaborations with Urbandale. Clay.
Mayor, Council, thank you. Before you today, we've got two 2080 agreements and a
fire apparatus exchange agreement for your consideration. Brief synopsis here. I've been a couple times talking to you guys about some of the movement that we've had with some of our collaborative efforts with the city of Urbandale. And I'm happy again to present these to you today. The first one here listed under A is the apparatus exchange. Under this agreement, this is the formal document that will allow us to send our ladder truck to Urbandale, and we'll receive their engine as a swap. There's some cash exchange that'll happen with this, but what it will more or less allow us to do is remove a very, very expensive ladder truck and replace that with an engine within our capital improvements. So that's a fantastic movement that we're making in this collaborative effort. Under B is the closest unit response. I know you all are very familiar with the Station 43 agreement that we'd had in place. This was kind of a review of that. Under that original agreement, there was some staffing steps in there that they've got all cleared up. So we went back and cleaned that whole document up. This kind of reassures our commitment to Urbandale and the closest unit response, and our alignment of apparatus and staffing moving forward. And then last but not least is the under C is our fleet apparatus and maintenance service agreement. This essentially allows us to use the Urbandale's fleet maintenance program down the street. We've already kind of used them a little bit, and it's proven to be very valuable already. Our out of service time is much, much shorter. They're very familiar with our trucks. They've got some tracking software that's going to be very beneficial to keeping our expensive trucks in service and keeping them on the street as long as we possibly can. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody may have.
And I'll add to it a little bit to Chief Garcia's comments. Chief and I were there at Urbandale's council meeting on Tuesday night for their consideration of these same agreements, and had some really nice comments from the Urbandale Council on our continued partnership. This is really another step in this partnership that we started back in 2017 in terms of doing the standards of cover study jointly to really determine how best to line up stations, how to create this closest unit response arrangement. And this is just a continuation of those efforts with, some substantial cost savings for both communities while not decreasing service at all. I think I know the chief has been receiving a lot of inquiries from other chiefs around the state and in the metro area about the reserve apparatus sharing arrangement that we're executing in this agreement, where it'll reduce our long-term costs for both communities and just frankly just makes sense. And alluded to, we've already taken advantage a little bit of testing out the relationship with Urbandale and their maintenance staff. Again, as they built that new public works facility down the street, they built it with the ability to a lift system to be able to raise up a fire engine and a ladder truck in that facility. So to be able to have that just down the street, or be able to have the ability for their staff to come up the hill and check out the apparatus without it getting, I know the chief talked about this in January, having those units out of service for a very limited amount of time is the most important thing. And instead of having to send it off to a manufacturer where it's out of commission for an extended period of time, this means a lot of good things for our residents and our businesses that we respond and protect on a daily basis. And so this, again, continues that relationship. I would say that, we're optimistic that there's even more steps to come into the future on these types of collaboration. And it's really we view as a model for other communities and other fire EMS agencies to consider throughout the metro area, throughout the state of Iowa. As heard from our friends at the state legislature, they want to see their local governments being efficient. Well, we've been doing that for a while here in Clive. And I think these agreements just show that continues without being forced to do so. And so very happy to bring these forward and continue our partnership with Urbandale. Thanks, Matt. Eric?
Yeah, I want to echo the city manager's thoughts on that. Clive has been a model on stormwater management, but also now a model of regionalization of public safety right here. So I really applaud you, Chief, with your efforts. I know we've worked on these models for many, many years, and this is exactly the step forward as far as increasing efficiencies, lowering our budgets, and working with our partner Urbandale. And really, I look for, almost challenge you guys to look for new ways to keep continuing to move this relationship forward. So This is great stuff. I did have a question I wanted to ask. On the presentation, you got the shop fee was $27,560 an hour. But on the budgeting memo on page 3, it was $31,200 for the shop fee and $64 an hour. What's the correct?
On the budget memos, that's the correct one. There was some cost change from the original presentation that I gave to you in the PowerPoint, and that's wrong. So in the budget memo is the accurate number.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, I would say this, I don't want to say too much, the manager and Eric said a lot there, but, thank you for the work you've done. Your predecessor kind of set us up, not to steal into your
I'm
thunder.
taking all the credit.
You do get full credit for taking it over the finish line. And I know there's some individuals from Urbandale that just walked in, but thank them as well for this. Not everybody is willing to work together and leave some of the, say, ego or ownership aside and do what's best for the residents. I think Urbandale has shown that through their leadership over the years. Clive obviously showing that as well. And so hopefully that continues, not just with Urbandale, but, we've got several other cities that are touching our borders that we can work with, and I know you are trying to do that. But I think with the two of you, Urbandale and Clive, working on that, we'll get a few more of these deals put together.
Other questions for Clay? Go ahead, Ted.
That to the echo chamber here, but this is just a tremendous accomplishment. And again, I do want to thank the Mayor of Urbandale and our Urbandale folks for doing this. It's a win-win for both communities, right? And this is probably the most creative shared services agreement I've experienced since I've been. And I just think it's a tremendous accomplishment. And the devil's always in the details. I mean, being able to work through all those details and hammering that out where it's good for both communities is just a great accomplishment. So thank you for all your work.
Well, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't give Mayor Andewig the opportunity to say a few words,
Sure,
if you would like.
sure. Thank you. Apologies for being late, but we were over at City Hall first, so. It took us a while to get to traverse from over there, so apologize for
Long drive.
that. It was, so
Well,
apologies
real
for
close, yeah.
coming in late. Apologies for casual, but we had another event as everybody else today, so I was there for that. So again, Bob Andewig, 3928 Greenview Drive in Urbandale. Just want to be here tonight to extend our thanks to Clive, and we approved this obviously Tuesday night. So I want to thank you for working on this with us as well. So I truly think all the comments I've heard, this is a great accomplishment for both of our cities. I think it's something that truly all can be proud of. So thank you for agreeing with us and moving it forward.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you.
So the first is a resolution.
Move the resolution approving the fire apparatus exchange agreement.
Motion is second. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? And that passes by a vote of 4-0.
Move the resolution approving the 2080 agreement for closest unit response for fire and emergency medical service by the citizens of Clive and Urbandale.
Motion is second. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? That passes by a vote of 4-0.
And move the resolution approving the 2080 agreement for emergency medical service and fire apparatus maintenance and service.
Second.
Motion is second. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? That passes by a vote of 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clay. Thanks to our friends in Urbandale. All right, next up, Matt.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have two agreement amendments before you tonight in kind of the spirit of what we were talking about earlier of government efficiency and expenditure reductions. The cities in Iowa and the metro area continue to face revenue constraints by decisions made by the Iowa legislature and other circumstances that are occurring. With that, it is required a review of any relationship that the city has externally in particular in terms of services that are provided. Over the past number of months, discussions have occurred amongst metro cities in terms of evaluating those opportunities, and 2 opportunities that were reviewed and sought in terms of amendment were the relationships with the Greater Convention Visitors Bureau and Bravo Greater Des Moines. These are 2 very important organizations in the metro area and the citizens of Clive in terms of providing tourism and Convention Visitor Bureau business in the metro area, which Clive benefits from particularly with our hotels and our quality of life amenities, but also Bravo Greater Des Moines, granting out funds to arts and culture organizations throughout the metro area, which a number of our residents enjoy, whether it's the zoo, the civic center, the art center, and a number of other large regional assets. So we very much appreciate the services that these sort of organizations provide. However, with the revenue constraints, and as I talked to you all during the budget process this year and your approval of the budget in April, that we're facing those financial constraints, and that is shown in the budget that you just adopted that will start July 1. And this offers an opportunity to consider how do we find some additional resources for these key services that we provide here within the city of Clive, and what are some opportunities. Under state law, there is the option of only providing 25% each to these organizations. We distribute hotel motel tax revenue at about 28.6% to both of these organizations currently. And so us, along with all of the other metro cities that are party to this agreement, have been seeking to make those adjustments. I included in the memo for both of these organizations, all the communities that have already adopted this amendment. These amendments to these 2080 agreements. I can report that West Des Moines also approved it earlier this week on Monday. And then we have a couple more to go on the CBB side here in the next month. Again, these are challenging times, particularly under the current property tax regime that we have here in Iowa, and there's also the potential for future reforms to come. So these are not decisions that are that we seek out, but tough decisions that, at least as your staff, we need to recommend to you, and in concert with the number of other Des Moines metro communities. So with that, Your Honor, we have 2 resolution amendments, resolutions authorizing amendments to both of these agreements, starting with Convention Visitors Bureau, Catch Des Moines, and then the second one being Bravo Greater Des Moines, reducing the funding level of our hotel motel tax distribution from 28.6% down to 25%. And that will start in the next fiscal year. With that, Your Honor, I'd be happy to take any questions or any comments, and would recommend your approval.
Susan.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to explain what reducing the proposed payments would free up the funds for alternative use. How else could they be used?
Yeah, so happy to do that. So the resources that would be freed up, and it's about $35,000 a year for each of these agreements. Hotel motel tax funding in Iowa can go towards any of a variety of amenities in a community, including Convention Visitors Bureau and arts and culture organizations, but also our public library, parks and recreation, economic development. There's a pretty extensive list, but there's a certain amount of functions that can be funded with hotel motel tax revenue. The balance of our revenue today goes towards those efforts, library and parks and recreation. So that basically what we'd be able to do is further support those efforts in our own budget, as those are high priorities for the council, and also identified as high priorities in our resident satisfaction survey. So that's where the resources essentially would help support our general fund that supports those efforts today.
So it'd be general fund, not CIP fund.
Correct. It's operational funds. Yes, that's a very good point. These are operational funds. There's no capital investment that we are making with our hotel motel taxes today. Some communities do choose to do that. Ours is operations.
Matt,
Eric?
could you review the savings for Clive on both CVB and Bravo?
Yeah, it's an estimated number just based on, we don't quite know. We have an estimate of what we think the hotel motel tax revenues will be in the next year, but based on that estimate that we included in the budget, $35,000, $35,700 is the exact for each of the organizations. So it'll be about roughly $70,000 coming back, staying within the city's budget year internally.
Other questions? Otherwise, we're looking for a resolution.
I'll move the resolution authorizing the amendment to the intergovernment agreement between the city of Clive and the greater CDB.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, would the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that? And that passes by a vote of 4-0.
Move the resolution approving the amendment to the intergovernment agreement between the city of Clive and Bravo Greater Des Moines.
Second.
Motion is second. Further discussion? Seeing none, would the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that? And that passes by a vote of 4-0. Thanks, Matt. Amanda. ADUs.
Mayor and Council, you can go ahead and go to the first actual slide. So tonight we are going to talk briefly about accessory dwelling units. As you all know from last year's strategic planning process, staff was working on bringing forward an ordinance revision to allow accessory dwelling units in Clive. In that timeframe, the state had also introduced SF 592 that was approved and signed into law earlier this month. And with that, now we have had to pivot a bit on what we were going to propose, but we will get into the details of that at the actual public hearing. We just wanted to give a quick overview for why we're setting the hearing and why it will look a little different than what we had previously talked about. Go to the next slide. Thank you. So the first big question, since we do have our next council member sitting in the chamber tonight, we wanted to hit on what is an accessory dwelling unit. This is not a zoning definition. This is a layman's concept of what it is. So it's basically, it's a second dwelling unit on a house or on a property with a principal dwelling, which will be any single family property in the city. That is per the state regulation. And the state defines single family in a way that would also include your traditional single family, attached and detached townhomes, and duplex. So that's kind of the framework we're working within. Basically, there's lots of words. They all mean the same thing. Just regional areas call them different stuff. So accessory dwelling unit, accessory housing unit, auxiliary unit, mother-in-law suite, granny flat, garage apartment, all are referring to the same thing.
And I mean, it's just to be clear, that can be both attached to the main dwelling, it can be, or it can be separate, correct?
Yes, correct. Yep. So real quick, the Clive vision, you are all very familiar with. I hope the new folks are as well. But mostly I want you to pay attention to the little graphics on the side. And we're going to hop to our next slide where we've said, why accessory dwelling units? So as an overview, first, they provide attainable, high quality housing in already developed areas. That supports really the four main portions there. It gives more options to support all residents. They're typically geared for housing a family member or downsizing a household and wanting to stay in your community, in your local area. But they're also good for lots of different living situations. So it's just providing more options for our residents. And they have lower construction costs than a traditional single family home since they're going on what's an already developed lot that already has utilities, streets, grading, all those things largely taken care of.
Some of that is probably smaller windows you can put in.
We would love to get into that with you during the public hearing. Oh, he is. He's back there.
Oh, sorry, Ryan, I didn't see all the way back.
I guess I didn't know this one was on there. And then, of course, Matt set up nicely for this one. Those private property investments do equate to taxable value that then goes back to the city that we can use for other enhancements to quality of life. So for types of accessory dwelling units, Councilmember Kleins gets to your point. There are both the detached, which is just a standalone building, wouldn't be attached to the main house at all. There are attached, which are connected to the principal building. And then some jurisdictions also recognize an interior or internal ADU. Not sometimes differentiated from the attached. It's where you would create it in a portion of the homes, like a basement or converting an attic space or something of that nature. In the case for the state law, they have simply identified detached and attached would be encompassing of those interior spaces as well. So we were not intending to separate it out any further than attached and detached in our ordinance as well. And then different jurisdictions use different terms. So you might see cities around us come up with their own language for it. But in this case, we're all really talking about it's a separate building or it is somehow connected to the principal building. So the objectives, I really don't know why it's doing every line individually. I'm sorry about that. But the first objective, of course, is compliance with the new state law. But the accessory nature of these accessory dwelling units really is key. The state law has some language in there on minimum and maximum sizes that we can regulate. So wanting to ensure that we've set it up, you just click through till it's all of them. Set it up to make sure that we are able to keep those community character and property owner investments to what we're used to seeing in the community and that we've worked hard to build with our current zoning and development regulations. So we are going to rely on the building codes to ensure that the units are safe. And we are going to use the zoning code to ensure as to the much that we can with the state regulations that the location and design of the units fits into the community character. And so for that approach, it will be allowed citywide in all residential districts. However, covenants will prevail. By right on the single family properties, as I explained, isn't just what we think of as your traditional single family lot based on the state's requirement. It'll have a similar review and permitting to your traditional single family housing units. There wouldn't be any planning and zoning commission or city council approval of specific site plans or special use permit or anything additional. Those units could be owner occupied, family member occupied, or rented. That is also in the state requirement. We are not allowed to have any limitations on that. And then we are also focusing on updating the zoning definitions to clearly distinguish our different dwelling unit types in order to accommodate the ADU language that we have to incorporate in there. So you'll see basically a new definition for each of our dwelling units because we're making tweaks to make sure that we're having all those details worked out.
I do appreciate that state legislators continue to help us out, thinking what's best for us
Yes.
and prescribing it. So, you know,
Yes.
nice.
And then for the process, tonight, we're setting the public hearing. Next week, 2 weeks from now, we will be at Planning and Zoning Commission, and we are inviting the BCAB, Building Code Appeals Board members to attend that meeting and participate in the discussion. Since we do not have to make an amendment to the building code, we don't actually need BCAB to take action, but this way they get to have input since they're a valuable part of all of our construction-related decisions. Then at June 26th is when we have set the public hearing and first consideration. Put the second consideration at the first meeting in July. And at that time, we could decide whether or not to waive that third consideration as the state law does become effective July 1st. We are finishing up the draft of that, our final internal staff review, and we'll be getting that over to our wonderful legal counsel to get their input and blessing prior to the public hearing.
Bless it.
Yes. And that's what I have for you guys. And again, we're happy to get into all the details during the public hearing portion. We'll bring back more information once we have that worked out. And tonight we are just asking for a vote on the resolution setting public hearing.
Eric?
Yeah, you said covenants prevail.
Mhm.
I mean, how is this gonna work with various HOA and the restrictions that they have right there?
Yeah, so most of those HOA covenants that we have on our single family areas do say that you can't have an accessory building, or it's very limited to the types of accessory buildings you could have. So that'll be interesting to see how it plays out. You might see some of those HOAs bring forward amendments to their covenants. Most of them would have a provision that requires council approval of those amendments. So you might see some of those come before you if there are residents in a particular area that are interested. Otherwise, it'll largely be up to those HOAs how they want to handle that. and how strictly they're going to interpret their covenants.
The state law only preempts municipalities from regulating it, does not trump the contractual right between parties that are part of a, HOA or
Mhm.
that have their own land covenants there. So those are essentially still legal, right?
Mhm.
Could the city?
The city cannot.
Further questions? Otherwise, we're just asking to set
Public
public hearing.
resolution setting public hearing for June 26, 2025 for 6 P M.
Second,
Motion and a second, set public hearing. Further discussion?
just real quick. Law takes effect July 1st.
Mhm.
We're having a second consideration on July 10th. What happens if a permit request comes in on July 2nd?
Yep, so we have discussed that at the staff level, and we do have that typical single-family review time turnaround. So that will buy us enough time that we should be able to have our amendment pass through before we would be up against there was like a shot clock on the submittal of the application to approval in the original state draft. It was removed. So it used that typical single-family review language in there. So here, those just depending on the volume we have, can be anywhere from 2 to 8 weeks on those reviews. So that gives us time to be adequately moving those forward within the state requirements.
Yeah, the real takeaway is just don't deny it.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
Well, I think if somebody does his job here in the next month or so, we won't get up against that. So he needs to get going on writing good stuff. The law for sure.
He's
Told you I was gonna call you out
He's our
today.
intern.
Well, I think we have a motion and a second. I think we're ready to vote, if I'm not mistaken. So would the council please vote? And would clerk please post that vote? And we've set the public hearing by a vote of 4-0. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Hey, Amanda, just one thought, we may want to just keep our eyes open on like model ordinances and as this develops over the next couple of weeks.
Yes,
And if council runs across some of that, they can send it your way.
absolutely. Happy to take a look at anything. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda. Next up, we're going to be talking about filling our council vacancy. Matt?
Yeah, Your Honor, this is a continuation of your discussion that started on May 1st regarding the candidates for your council vacancy that you currently have. For you tonight, we have 3 candidates we have listed out on the agenda. And as has been outlined to the candidates, of course, Dave didn't have the opportunity to be before you on May 1st. Of course, we shared the video recording of his responses to your initial questions. Dave will be here to start off tonight to answer any follow-up questions the council may have, and then offer a final statement. And then as has been shared with the candidates as directed by council, the other 2 candidates, Brianne and Andrew, will get the same opportunity to offer a final statement and the other follow-up questions. And then it kind of turns over to you for council deliberation and any decisions. Legal counsel included in your agenda packet, kind of your choices, options before you tonight in terms of appointing now during this council meeting. You have or delaying that for a special meeting. You have up until June 10th to make an appointment based on the 60 days following Sri Chemical and Navy's resignation on April 11th. And then if you decline to appoint, that triggers an automatic special election to fill this vacancy. So that is the options before you tonight, and I will turn it over to the mayor for proceedings.
Thank you very much, Matt. Well, Dave, you're first up. So again, we appreciate you putting that video together for us.
Well, my daughter's wedding went perfect, so I appreciate the extra time you gave me.
So we'll open it up for questions, kind of follow up as we do with the other candidates. So anyone want? Go ahead, we'll start.
All right, I've got 2 questions. So there's been some scuttle that there may be a special petition that gets filed, which would trigger a special election. I know in your video you mentioned that people would be more than willing to run again, if appointed, run in November. So my question to you is, if that were to happen, and a special election gets pushed forward, that would happen in probably August sometime, which would then, impact your summer basically because of the campaign. how do you feel about that? Is that something that you're still willing to, if appointed, commit to that special election?
Yes, Ted. Like I'm retired, so I can pretty much do what I want, and all of our kids live close, so.
Well, I just want to make you aware of it, just
Sure.
because it's a possibility and it can impact people's summer, right? So.
It's an excellent point. I would be willing to be very flexible in the time period.
I appreciate that. Second question, so each of us kind of bring our own skill set, that kind of complements each other, up here. You know, Shakant, for example, had deep knowledge of technology, and so he was able to really help us with some technology. So, Susan's great at economic development, right? She knows way more than I'll ever know, and I lean on her for that. We're still trying to figure out Mike. About 10 years now. We'll figure it out eventually. Like, so what would you bring to the technology?
I would bring financial expertise, budgeting, very important in cities and counties, and listening skills, working with people for different thoughts.
Eric? Yeah, Dave, a couple questions here. First of all, thanks for coming out tonight and congratulations on your daughter's wedding. So,
Thank you, Eric.
a couple quick questions. I want to be consistent. The questions I'm asking, I've shared with the other candidates as well. So I want to be consistent across the board. One of the things we talked about earlier with the discussions regarding Urbandale is a regionalism and a sense of working together. What are the ways that you think that Clive could work with neighboring communities to increase the efficiencies and achieve better operations, and be specific as you could, looking for ideas on how we can be a better regional partner and increase efficiencies?
Well, I live in Clive, but just a few blocks in Dallas County section of Clive, and really close to Waukee. So I'm thinking what I'd like to see is people have some of these aquatic centers working together, instead of everybody having their own aquatic center and having the expense for that, have a regional one that people could get to. Same thing for libraries. It seems like libraries are such an important part of our cities, but less and less people are using the libraries as people are using more electronics these days, getting online. I go to the library now, to the backup library, I call it, because our current library is under construction. Not a lot of people in there going in and out every day. So we could also maybe do the libraries regionally, kind of like we do the fire department, working together with Urbandale, Waukee.
I couldn't agree with you more. And you know, I think that the voters of both Waukee and Urbandale probably agree too, because they voted down their aquatic center. So glad to see that. So we continue our partnership with our friends from Urbandale and Waukee as well. Second question I have is that, so we've all served together for, you know, between 12 and 15 years. And how do you work and collaborate from a team perspective? And how would you collaborate and work with the current members of the Clive City Council?
First off, I'd have a lot to learn during the first few months, 6 months, because you know, there's a lot of procedures, a lot of things that you are used to. But I get along with mostly everybody, even people who have different political or ideological ideas. It's just a matter of respecting each person. At the end of the day, vote is 4-1 or 3-2. At the end of the day, after the vote, everybody needs to get on board and be with the project. If my idea didn't get voted correctly, the way I see it, better luck next time. But now I have to be part of everybody, 5-0 to the outside public, get on board. So I work with people, try to point out my ideas as being correct, but I'm not stubborn. So if somebody convinced me that my idea is not correct, I'm flexible enough. I still have my ethics, but I'm flexible enough to change.
And last question, on December 30th of 2024, you announced your candidacy for the Dallas County Board of Supervisors. So are you running for both positions, or what's your thoughts on that?
Well, the Dallas County is not official yet. So this opportunity was not in my dashboard at the time. So if I would be part of the board here, council here, then I wouldn't run for the Dallas County supervisor spot.
But you made a public announcement.
Well, yeah, but there's no there's no, it's not open to, like, you can't even put your nomination form in.
I'm aware.
So my announcement would say, something came up, which is a change, and change happens. So, okay, that's what I do.
Susan?
I just have one question. I really appreciated watching your video, and I remember you're emphasizing your culture of service. I'd just like to be refreshed a little bit on what motivated you by part of what your name in that.
Well, 25 years, I've worked, lived in Clive over 25 years. I got a lot of good things out of Clive. Like I said in my video, we used to do Clive at 5, but that has improved now to, we do the fireworks in that same area. And I'm so thankful for everything that has happened to me in my life. It's just time to give back to the public. I've already done a lot of giving back to things like the Lions Club and churches, but not public. And I think you have to have good stewards, or else things could take a turn for the worse. I want to keep Clive on a good track. So it's just a time in my life where I can do that. I've traveled my other jobs. I just couldn't do it. I did run for school board back in 1986, but didn't get elected. What's that?
You're giving away your age.
Yeah, didn't have any kids. That's probably why.
Michael?
Dave, I think my only question, and covered most everything, is further on that of Ted's question. If you were chosen today, you would run in November. Is that true?
If it didn't
If it-
come up earlier, yes.
Would you run regardless if you were in August or November? If you were not picked today, would you still run for the seat in an open election?
No.
Why not? I mean, that'd be
Well,
opportunity in an
we
election.
got two other great candidates, and if they were chosen, I'd expect them to continue because I like to see continuity. You don't want to have people changing every couple of years. You really need that history. You know, things happened 10 years ago, and if everybody switching all around all the time, nobody's gonna know why certain things were passed by the council because the minutes, they're not in depth enough. So if one of the other candidates, which are, you got three fine candidates today, were chosen, I expect them to run, and I wouldn't challenge them.
Now's your opportunity to sum up.
All right. Mayor Edwards and all council members, it's my honor to be considered for a seat on the Clyde Council. You have a great slate of candidates, and whoever you choose to be a worthy addition to the Clyde Council. Although not intentionally planning for this position, my lifelong experiences needed for guiding the city of Clive and the responsibilities that go with it may seem like I kind of did plan for this. I've had board experience in the past with responsibilities for diverse groups of people, including professional international boards, volunteering on Lions Club boards, and various church boards, all requiring listening to constituents and weighing decisions while working with other board members that might not have the same views as me. As a CPA, I am detail-oriented, have audited many businesses and charitable organizations. I work not only on creating multi-year billion-dollar budgets, but also reviewing budgets prepared by others of lesser amounts. After retiring from an international company 2 years ago, where I served as finance director, I took a one-year position with the state of Iowa. I chose to do this so I could go to various cities and counties and audit their entities to gain a better understanding of the local government practices. My intent was to use these best practices observed in a local governing setting in my future. This is the opportunity and perfect match for my experience and skills. Now that our 5 children have left our home, are successful in living on their own, I have fewer personal responsibilities. As I am retired, I can devote a lot of time to the Clive Council and projects the mayor and the council assigned to me as important issues. I've enjoyed the benefits of living in Clive for over 25 years and welcome the chance to make decisions that will continue the excellent benefits that Clive offers. Thank you for your consideration. I think your selection process was well thought out.
Thank you, Dave. Tucker?
I moved to Clive 5 years ago because of its central location in the greater Des Moines metro. I stayed because we offer some of the lowest taxes and the highest quality services of any suburb. At this point, I'm not sure I will ever be able to live more than a mile away from the Greenbelt Trail, and seeing the goats on the trail is the highlight of every weekend. Clive truly is distinct by nature. I'm proud to live in Clive, and I want others to be as well. Within a handful of months of moving here, I volunteered to join the Board of Adjustment and have been a keen follower of city government and projects since. The Board of Adjustment is a very small piece of city government. But every meeting, my fellow board members and I have to consider the precedents we could be setting if we grant or deny a variance or permit. Some applicants ask rather pointedly, are you sure you want to set that precedent? It truly depends, but it's not a personal decision. At the center of my decision-making is what would make Clive better? What would make Clive a great place to live, work, and play? I have to balance the rules with city plans and priorities and coupled with home and business owner desires. It is a big responsibility, and I do not make those decisions without deep consideration and analysis. Clive is a landlocked city that must continue to develop from within because our borders are set. That requires creative problem solving, like we heard earlier, and strong relationships with neighboring cities if we all want to continue to thrive. I was drawn to the Board of Adjustment because of my extensive regulatory compliance background, including work in the healthcare, finance, and nonprofit sectors. I have been the compliance officer for an organization with 2,000 employees that serve 5,000 children and their families. I made decisions and wrote policies that impacted all of those people, and those are not decisions I made lightly. I know how to assess the rules and make sure they not only mitigate risk, but make sure they work together and actually improve the lives of people. I don't want to create rules and red tape for fun. As much as people think the government can be about that, it's not. It's about making the lives of people better. City government works well because we put our personal beliefs and politics aside and make the best decisions for the people we serve and the place where we live. Serving others is one of my own personal values, and I want to continue to advance the place I call home through the City Council. As a young woman, I can add a different perspective to the council and increase diversity of thought, while also fulfilling a personal need to give back. I'd be honored to be appointed and serve on the City Council, and I thank you all for the opportunity.
Before you step down, just to clarify from last time, as far as your interest in running, if there were a special election in running.
Yes. At the time, I was a little vague, and I apologize. I wanted to choose my words appropriately. I was in the process of applying for a new job, which I have accepted, and that supervisor is supportive of this work going forward. My previous supervisor was a little more constrained on my time, and I knew I would not be able to give myself fully to the role if I was elected or if I was appointed and then further elected. So that has all been cleared up, and I am good to go going forward.
All right. Thank you, unless there. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew.
Well, I appreciate you guys having us back. This has been a great opportunity. I don't envy you guys the decision. It's both great candidates. So kind of just to close out, I want to reiterate, kind of my 3 points as to why I wanted to join the City Council. So the first is that service. I want to give back, something that I've done in my life, being in the military. It's something I appreciate. Public service is an important part of who we are as a democratic nation. Secondly, for my family, kind of everybody's talked about, the importance of family in Clive. I have my 4 kids that are growing up in this community, and I want to be there to build and help grow that community. And then lastly, the skills that I bring, the process improvement. We've talked about the regionalization, the efforts to be more efficient in order to continue to grow and improve our community while partnering with others around us and finding those creative solutions that you referenced. So for me, kind of in closing, I had two kind of points that I really wanted to hit on. The one is that in all things that I do, I try not to promise outcomes, but promise effort. Outcomes implies that I can kind of predict the future and I know exactly what's going to happen. Effort implies that I will give 100% to what it is that I'm trying to do. And any kind of process improvement effort, you can speculate, you can kind of predict and forecast, but at the end of the day, the work that goes in and the efforts and the combined efforts across the board is what dictates the outcome. So I can't promise any of the outcomes if I'm appointed, but I will promise that I will give 100% to what we need as a community. And then the last point that I want to make, and I'm quoting my father, who was a veterinarian for a long time, and he worked at a horse track in Pennsylvania for a long, long time. And he always told me that it's not the fastest horse in the race, it's being the right horse in the right race that will dictate the outcome. And so for me, again, I don't envy your decision because you guys have to pick the right horse. I believe that I would be the right horse in this race. But again, I just appreciate you guys taking the time to talk with us, giving us this opportunity. And I look forward to, whether in this capacity or another, continuing to work with all of you and seeing where we can go as a community. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Well, I want to echo what others have said. We very much appreciate the three of you throwing your hat in the ring and being willing to consider appointment. Unfortunately, two of you will be disappointed tonight as you leave, and I would urge you to take the initiative that you've already demonstrated and think about Clive boards and commissions. We do need good people like you on boards and commissions. So I don't know if anyone wants to add anything else before we move to the next step. No. We'll move to the next step. Our next step would be to enter someone's name in nomination to consider.
Okay, I'll be willing to do that, Mr. Mayor. I want to kind of echo the mayor's comments. Thank you all for going through this process, not just putting your name in, but seeing the process through, right? It takes courage and it takes fortitude to take that, and you all have shown that. And clearly, all three of you qualify. There's no question, right? And that's kind of honest with you, David. Unique skill set. You each have some unique skill sets that would be a nice compliment to the council. So there's value there from each of you that we could benefit from. As the mayor said, we would encourage you, if you're not appointed, to stay engaged, stay involved. Speaking for myself, one of the things that I really value, and I think my colleagues do as well, it's not a prerequisite, but I highly value it, is past service to the city and to the people. That shows a level of commitment that we really value, and that's important. And so that's why I say stay engaged, stay plugged in. There will be future opportunities, I can assure you, right? And so create those contacts and create that track record, and then you'll be well positioned in the future if you're not tonight. So I lost my name here. So with that said, I'll motion to appoint Brianne Hocker to fill the city council vacancy with the appointment to remain in effect until the next regular city election or until the successor is elected and qualified following a special election pursuant to Iowa Code.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have further discussion?
I'd just like to explain my second.
Go ahead.
And in addition to what Ted has said, I really do value the diversity of thought and experience that each of us have. And Brianne has been willing to note that she wants to bring the perspective of young female, and I value your location in the eastern part of the city as well. So some of my rationale.
Very good. Anything else? Any other? Eric?
Yeah, just a quick, I want to reiterate, thanks to all of you for coming. You're all very overqualified. You would be a tremendous candidate for any council out there. So I really applaud you guys for going through the process. You each bring a great skill set to the process, and not to oversay this, but please stay engaged. We need people like you on our boards, commissions, and be involved in the community. It's so important for us to move forward because it's a critical time for us. So really appreciate your effort. I really appreciate your skill set. Please stay engaged.
No comment?
Covered it all.
Okay, very good.
I think it's interesting that each one of us, I think maybe, I'm not sure if the mayor started, I believe we were each appointed one time.
Elected first. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
But he had served on other boards.
Yeah.
So with that, I think the council is ready to vote. And then would the clerk please post that vote? And that motion passes by a vote of 4-0. And so our next step is to do a swearing in.
Congratulations. Yeah. that's true.
I don't know, Peter, you gonna take a picture?
Thanks, Andrew.
Let's, step out of the,
Mike, we can do this back here in the court.
Over in the corner?
yeah, we'll get that.
Okay, the hardest part here is I'm gonna say I, and then you were to say your name.
Okay.
And then repeat after me.
Okay.
Okay. I
I, Grant Hawker,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
and I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all duties
discharge all duties.
of the office of council member in the city of Clyde.
Repeat that.
Yes, discharge all duties of the office of council member in the city of Clyde,
Discharge all duties of the office of the council member of Clyde,
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
You're sworn in. Congratulations.
That's even now.
The one with the seal you'll need to sign.
Actually, John, I got to see. What you been doing?
All right, Matt, I think we're ready for the strategic plan update.
Thank you, Your Honor. The last item on the agenda, again, will be a brief item. Every quarter, we provide an update to the city council on strategic planning action items and kind of where the status is. Included in the agenda packet, which Councilmember Hawker will get access to here soon, includes a lot of information on projects that are going on in the community that you've had noted as a top of high priorities on either your policy agenda or the management agenda. A couple of specific items that I wanted to feature tonight is work continues on the financial analysis with PFM, kind of what we've termed the DIP study. In fact, after I get back vacation next week, we'll have an update call with them. We've already done a number of meetings with departments, kind of diving in on some of those opportunities and putting that information together for you, queuing that up for strategic planning this year. Also on Alice's Road, an update on that. Of course, we're under construction with phase 1A. Staff will be working pretty hard here over the next couple of months as we look at kind of, we'll call it the acquisition strategies that'll be necessary for phase 1B and phase 2. We've also executed on a number of, as the council is aware, on some changes to our federal funding allocations for Alice's Road, shifting all of those dollars to phase 4 on the north end, and then also submitting for a community project grant with Congressman Nunn's office to seek additional funding. Again, this is all partnership with our friends at the city of Waukee. Greenbelt Landing, I'm happy to report that the parking lot has now been all paved back in. Of course, we were getting all ready for the aquatic center to open tomorrow. Unfortunately, the 60-degree temps are not helping us with that. So staff has made the decision earlier today to just go ahead and wait to open the aquatic center until May 31st. As you know, we usually open up just for the Memorial Day weekend and then reopen for the rest of the season the next Saturday. With the 60-degree temps over the weekend, it'll just be May 31st. So it gives our construction crews a little bit more time to clean up some of the landscaping. We just finished the sidewalks, I believe today, or they'll be finished tomorrow.
In front of the door.
Front of the door. And so we've been getting that parking lot all buttoned up and ready to go for the aquatic center season to start. So a lot of good progress happening there. One I'd also mention at a future council, probably your next council meeting, is the MPO and Director May and Assistant City Manager Cook have been keeping tabs on this with the MPO in terms of the Safe Streets for All grant opportunity that will be coming for. Am I stealing your thunder? Then I'll stop. There'll be, I'll let Councilmember Weaver explain further, but that will be coming before you here in June. Because Clyde has a role in terms of some opportunities for grant dollars for some key corridors, 86th and University too. So I'll go ahead and steal too much from you. Sorry. That's probably not much left. We need to coordinate that better. Sorry. Also want to mention that in terms of the City Hall renovation update for phase 1 is we're nearing completion of the transition area of the new circulation desk for phase 1 so we can reopen the library, the main library here on June 2nd. A lot of good progress has been made. New carpet has been laid between the transition zones of the renovation area and the original library. I think you'll be really happy to see what the new circulation desk looks like. We've got a few pictures online on the project webpage that show that. Excited to get the library reopened, and then we'll finish out the rest of the space while the library is reopened. So that project has been going well. Of course, the heavy rains this week helps you identify some leaks in the roof that you don't always find. That is the joy of our City Hall building, the library building. Some days when you get 3.5 inches of rain, you find some things. So we've been working through that. The construction crews have been doing a nice job. On the flood mitigation side, which is a top priority, lots of actions in the strategic plan on this. Happy to report, at least we've seen some movement. I know the last council meeting we talked about, or it was the council meeting before that, some challenges with some FEMA funding. We have received some indication from our state folks and through FEMA that we were concerned about the funding allocation for the university kind of scoping plan. We are seeing some forward movement on that and the potential of getting reimbursed, at least our initial reimbursement on that. So also a credit to Councilmember Klein and Jenkins, and then for Assistant City Manager Cook for the DC trip. I think both on the FEMA side and on the special census side, we've seen some movement pretty quickly right after that meeting. So I think that's a really good sign and a testament to the value of those visits. So those are all items that were identified in your strategic plan. On the special census side, the city clerk received word last week that we are going to be receiving an exemption for the temporary federal hiring freeze to allow the Census Bureau to hire census workers, temporary census workers for our special census. That will likely now occur later this fall. I think October was their projected date. And of course, there'll be more details that they'll be having a kind of a project call here pretty soon. I've heard that other communities in the metro area that were also waiting on that have received a similar exemption. So we'll be seeing a few special censuses moving forward later this year, which again, as a reminder to the council, the benefit for us is there's definitely an ROI on the specific special census, and still seeing it happen in 25 and final numbers in 26 will definitely keep us within that 2-year window of that return on investment of additional road use tax dollars to fund the 391,000 that we are paying for the special census as the estimated fee. So those are some ones that I wanted to specifically note tonight. Be happy to answer any questions from council on any other strategic planning priorities.
Anything?
Yeah.
Matt, this is not a strategic planning priority, but you know, the appointment to the Clive City Council, it's a nonpartisan position, and there are partisan groups out there that for partisan reasons have talked about and inquired about a special election. So could you just review with the council what the costs would be and the Clive taxpayers for a special election?
Happy to. When we reached out to the 2 counties, so of course, Clyde sits both within Polk and Dallas County. Any election would engage both of those county election offices in that effort. The estimated number in total that we've received from both counties totals $20,000 for a special election this summer.
$20,000 bill to the taxpayers of Clive. Thank you. Yeah, for a 2-month term. Just to be clear about that.
Correct. Well, it would be if the special election were to happen, whoever were to win that special election would fulfill the rest of Councilmember Michelini's term. So that would be the full 2.5 years. Okay. It would not be up for re-election again in November.
But it just adds 2 months to the.
But it is that you would have an election happening 2 months later as well.
Yep.
Anything else for Matt? If not, Pete, we'll start with your report.
Thank you, Your Honor. So tonight, as Matt and I discussed before this meeting, we'd like to start to get a little bit of direction from council about the tone that you'd like to use discussing fireworks as we approach the 4th of July. So the state legislature has changed the rules now.
Not just 4th of July.
It's 3 days.
It's New Year's Eve, and it's actually the 3rd and the 4th.
Fourth.
3 days.
So
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, couple of, I'm gonna first ask questions about sort of the tone that you'd like us to adopt in some of our public communications on this, if there's a consensus, and then I'll pass it to Matt to talk about some of the ordinance options that will be before you and give some direction. So first, you'll recall in the past, we always said if it flies, it does not allow it in Clive. And if it explodes, it's not allowed in Clive. Because of the rules, the law change now, we will have to allow things that fly and things that explode, not just the novelties like snakes and sparklers. And in fact, there were many people who were disregarding that position of the city. We know, Fred, or certainly our police department knows from calls with the Westcom and the non-emergency number 2 that this was happening in a lot of different neighborhoods. And then we would, and all of you would receive phone calls too from people who were frustrated by what was going on in their neighborhoods. I would suggest that, our communications on this in the past has first and foremost been about life safety and just consideration of your neighbors as well. With these bigger classes of fireworks, we will be looking potentially at, well, not potentially, we will be facing greater risk of people potentially get hurt or other types of negative externalities. So we'd like a little direction on whether or not the council wants to continue emphasizing the importance of sort of the safety and staying away from these and leaving it to the professionals, or even though it's legal now, or if you'd like to sort of change the talk.
To what? What are you proposing?
What are our options?
Well, we can look to a lot of communities that have had a different position on this. So I probably want to go and check in with our neighbors in Waukee. They've allowed this for a number of years.
Right.
Yep. I want to make sure we check in with our experts in the fire service so that they can say, if you're going to use these,
Emphasizing safety and
this is how,
responsibility.
yep, this is how you do it safely. This is, and just basic common sense, like if kids are around, make sure people are staying far enough away so that there isn't a horrible accident. In general, it's not wise to have kids that are too young and not responsible using these because there could be serious harm to them or others or property. Those would be some of the basics that we would emphasize. It's, for me, it's that question of, do you want to say, oh, and even though it's legal, don't do it? Or do you want to stay on that sort of more aggressive edge of this? Or do you want to pull back to something that is more, if you do it in the safest?
I don't think that would be very effective. The people that are going to do it are probably going to be reading your communications that posted. I don't know. I heard. I know.
Look, my thought is just to, reaffirm that message of safety and responsibility. Ted, I agree with you a little bit. They're either gonna do it or not, it is what it is, but if we just reinforce that responsibility and safety message,
For using or deterring? Using?
for using.
For using.
There's one other question we can fold into our communications. That is sort of a sense of, as fun as it is to do it, it may not be the right place to do it right there in your yard. You need to be thinking about your neighbors who maybe have some unique situations. We hear from a lot of those folks who say,
Yes.
this triggers me in a horrible way. This is, animals, people who have served, and
Veteran
Veterans.
across the street,
Yeah.
probably not a good idea.
Yeah, so you can also fold some of those messages that, this is a chance for Clyde to show its best values. Be considerate. It might be fun to do it, but let's do it in a way that first prioritizes the, good consideration for our neighbors.
What's the hours on that, Pete? Is there an hours on that law?
No, it's the entire day of the 3rd, the 4th, and the 31st.
So perhaps, within reason, along with that message that, shooting off bottle rockets or what have you at, 3 o'clock in the morning is probably inconsiderate. Part of that responsibility.
We still have noise ordinance that we can enforce. We still have, this is only, the law only permits consumer fireworks, which is a different grade than, say, display fireworks, for example. So there are some limitations that can still be, don't worry, the chief and I are gonna stay busy, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I don't know how
Running it through my head right now.
And the other chief.
I don't know how busy I want legal to be on this, right? Because state law.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm not sure how much I want written or researched or any of that, because there's nothing we can do. So I paused the legal bit, and back that off, saying, it's out of our hands, it's out of our hands. The other piece of that is, I do think it's fair to, not in a rude way, but on our website or on our communications, to let them know that it's state legislators that are allowing, right? And for the ones that want to do it, that's great. State legislators allow it, right? The ones that don't want it, to flood phone call to the city, we can't do anything about it. Here's your legislator's name, here's their number, here's their contact. Not their personal cell number or anything, but that type of thing, then pushing that off just to let them know it's out of our hands, type of thing. If they want a large, clear parking lot, go up to the firehouse or the police station, and there's a great parking lot, right? To light them.
Do we have any ability to,
You live right behind us.
Yes, we did get clarity on that. Same way there would be for other types of legal burning, like grills, bonfires, things like that. If there is a red flag warning, if there is a burn ban in place, then yes, that would prohibit, we chose that could prohibit fireworks use. So that's good. One other question that I've got, over the last few years, we've heard about a lot of damage done in parks around the metro. We'll go shoot off fireworks. Is it possible for the city to restrict their use in parks?
I'll have to look that up. The statute isn't clear. It is a complete prohibition on those 3 days, but let me look into that.
Yeah, because that would be a good thing to communicate. If that is prohibited, can't do it on covered properties, including public parks. That would be a great thing.
And I think you could enforce it after 10 o'clock, our park's closed, right?
That's a good point.
That you're in there, that's not enforcing the fireworks, it's enforcing that you're in the park after hours, right? Do it the own sort of way, but.
And I think Council, your point about the noise ordinance, those are seems like there's two things that are pretty directly in conflict with each other.
You're asking me to provide a legal opinion?
No, but because I do, I take when McCoy's point on this, because in this situation, it seems like the legislature was pretty clear. They wanted to be able to have.
Yeah, here's the way it reads. You cannot prohibit the use or limit the use. It doesn't say anything about preempting my noise ordinance. So I think that's an open question for enforcement.
And from an enforcement perspective, Chief, I would offer you this, perhaps at 10 o'clock, we can have extended runs through our park system as well. If there's folks in there that perhaps shouldn't be, remind them that the park is closed. Has nothing to do with fireworks. The park is closed for an actionable item that our police can do with, not running down claims and phone calls. We could, at 10 o'clock, we could make sure that we've got a presence in all of our parks, making sure that there's nobody there.
We do that now, just as a general patrol rule, but yes. if I can, Your Honor, to Councilmember McCoy's point, the biggest question that we had from the ordinance perspective is we have the strict certain days that it has to be allowed. As we bring this ordinance amendment back to you to update the city's code, because we have prohibition throughout the year, based on the conversation, I'm getting the sense that the council wants to keep it limited to just those days that the state is preempting us. That was probably the biggest question legal counsel and I had, is that it's just limited to the preemption days, not anything broader than that. That was really the main question that we had. And then there's these underlying kind of communication points that we wanted to get across, but for the actual procedure itself, bringing back to you at your next council meeting, we wanted to make sure that the direction of the council is only limited to this new change of July 3rd, 4th, and December 31st, nothing more. Is that fair to say with the council?
Yeah. We've brought up homeowners associations for any ability for them to have a restriction.
I think the statute's silent on whether homeowners association can restrict it, meaning I think they could. I don't think this statute's focused on supervisors, right? Board of supervisors and city councils. It doesn't touch private HOAs.
So for example, in the country club, we still have a number of shake shingle roofs.
Yeah.
The concern, so.
I mean, I
think
would
that's-
of course, refer you to your legal counsel for your HOA or covenants, but my interpretation is this is applicable to the city in your regulatory capacity. And as far as the public parks, this does not allow us to prohibit use in the public park. Or my opinion is they would be allowed to use it in the public park.
Till 10 PM.
I would say we have a different ordinance to enforce at that time. It is not preempted by the law.
Now, we do have requirements for picking up litter. We do have requirements for not destroying the property. And that's where we got in trouble where Des Moines has had some trouble with, when that's when it gets out of control. The other part of all of this that I really am concerned about is you've seen that with the container fire a number of years ago. You have somebody who takes something they think's extinguished and puts it in a garbage can, walks away, and suddenly you've got something burning 20 minutes later, right? So that it will need to be an important part of our discussion for anybody doing it anywhere, but certainly if we start seeing it in the parks like that, that could become a dangerous situation because those receptacles are frequently next to a shelter or next to a play space. Do hundreds of thousands of worth of damage in just a short amount of time, but one simple accident.
I think it's very clear that the legislators wanted done to allow it up to the 4th to the 31st. I think that it's very clear that you can't prohibit. The other pieces that we're talking about, we can and we should. Again, it's not, I get it, but I don't, for one, care for a whole bunch of research on this on the legal side, spend a bunch of money on something. The legislators have made it very clear their intention, and let's just put it in as that. And we allow it on those days, period, that's it. I could probably do a crossover and we could all initial it, the way we go on the proposal, but it's a very simple thing. I heard researching and other practical space.
Me too.
I mean, this is why the legislature took another swing at it. It's because everybody started researching and circumventing it, but it's going to continue to take more swings at it.
It's a broad mandate they've given us. It's very simple. It's very clear too.
That gives me the direction I need to start putting some of these assets together. We'll use the July newsletter to really lead with this change so people know what's coming, know that it is coming of the legislature, and then offer some of these points that you all put together. We'll also put it up on all the digital platforms and put some reels out on social media.
July newsletter come out.
It's always a couple days flex around the holidays, around the day of the week. But this year, yeah, the 4th is on a Wednesday, so bills would be going out probably all on the 30th, you think? Probably 30th, day before the 1st or 2nd. So we'll get them out on that Friday, which would mean they'd be hitting mailboxes on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
I do want to correct one thing for the record. I said it was only consumer fireworks, display fireworks, which are a larger explosive, are actually also allowed. So just to correct myself on that one. I will have an amendment that, carves out those 3 days from your general, prohibition for the next meeting.
The third and fourth looks like Thursday and Friday.
Did I look at the wrong month? I look at June.
Thursday, Friday.
Thursday,
Fourth is on a Friday.
Excuse me.
And when I say I'll have an amendment, our intern tape body will have an amendment. Don't incur significant legal costs in researching.
So that bill by the end there will be $700.
We'll make sure we get the word out to folks.
Very
Thank you.
good. Anything else, Pete?
Oh, yeah.
Matthew, anything? Matt?
A few items, Your Honor, just a reminder that we have the Circana Park ribbon cutting on May 29th at 4 p.m. And it looks like right now the weather forecast is going to be, right now, a very nice day a week from tonight. We talked about the fireworks piece. Wanted to also mention that on June 6th, we'll have the Staff Appreciation Food Truck Friday. Program starting around 4 p.m. Or the event starting around 4 p.m. and then the program a little bit later after that. So we'll have some good weather that day as well.
Is there a kickball tournament?
We're trying to put a sand volleyball tournament together. So I don't know if you can do that though. If you're injured. Your previous
I
injury.
used to a tremendous one.
Terrible, man.
And
Pickle bags.
with Councilmember Hawker now on the council, I will be following up with you to schedule some time for orientation. And you'll be drinking from a fire hose for a little while, but we'll get you spun up and all the systems to support your participation in these council meetings, the agenda packets, and all the items that go with that. We'll find some time for us to get together to start discussing that. So excited about that. And then Greenbelt Music Festival. So I wanted to give the chief an opportunity just to give a brief report of how things went this last weekend. Long story short, it went pretty well. So I'll let Chief just make comment on just a few small things, but it went over.
I thought you said you were gonna do this.
I know, I just decided I wanted you to do it.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, Greenbelt Music Festival, it was relatively quiet. The crowd was down because of the weather. A lot of the events were moved inside, but Mary, you sent me one email from a resident. We took a preemptive sound measurement at his neighbor's property. He was not home. And it was under the 60 decibel limit at the time. Had one other call just on the lateness of what the show was going through. It was about 9:45 at night. Their permit allowed them to go till 11, so that was not a non-issue as well. Yeah, other than that, nothing. It was a really good event. We did have officers down there on scene, and they didn't have any issues. So,
You know, from a messaging standpoint, typically, and I know last year, it was just a couple people that had concerns about the noise level. You know, perhaps we could reach out to them prior, saying, you know, just the message, again, this is what's gonna happen. Here's the times on it. They're within their right to do this. We've approved it. You know, if you don't like it, we certainly understand that. Perhaps now would be a good time to go stay with your son or daughter or whatever, take a vacation, what have you. But this is gonna go on, you know, just want to work with people. You know,
Right.
it's,
we can keep a list and we can contact people. I think we do a pretty good job through social media, putting that out there. We've got a pretty good following. So, it seems like this is the third year now. Every year we get fewer and fewer calls. So
it might just peter out, Mark, you know.
I think it will. We actually get a lot of comments from other residents that they appreciate events like that going on.
Yeah, sure.
Exciting year. I will tell you, you know, where I live, obviously I've said many times, it's the bowl, right? It's at the top of the bowl. We hear all things. It was tasteful. It was well done. And you could hear it. But,
Yeah. If you haven't been to the Greenbelt Music Festival, go, because it's a good time.
Yeah.
So,
it's great for the city.
yep, I agree.
Did they contribute to the, White Community Foundation?
Yes.
Good. Thank you for volunteering.
I don't know how many volunteers we got, but CCF did try to provide a number of volunteers for you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
How I have you on, other than I'll be out of the state on vacation starting tomorrow through Wednesday, back up some Thursday. I don't know.
What
Have
will
any other-
happen? What will happen?
always something.
Don't have to say that
It's
out
always
loud.
something. Firework, container fire, green belt fire. Always.
Potholes.
Somebody's trying to jinx
Serving
us
as
here.
acting city manager, and I'm sure everything will be perfectly fine. That's all I have, Your Honor, unless there's any questions.
Well, thank you. Legal?
Nothing further.
Thank you very much. Michael?
We did attend the DART meeting, a few weeks ago, a week ago. They ended up putting our vote, as you prescribed it, coverage fees. A lot of folks, were on the ridership side. I think there's still a lot of confusion of what those two, what's each of those two, what they actually want, right? Versus kind of how it was defined. It's extremely confusing on how they lay it out. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but it seems to be very confusing for most cities. So that saga continues. There's another one coming up here very soon.
Well, they kind of moved their schedule around. So we haven't seen an updated, we know that there's another commission meeting on June 3rd, but they were wrestling with whether they were gonna have a separate meeting. I think the tentative date I had was it's either the June 3rd commission meeting or June 16th. They haven't set that yet. They were kind of
Yeah, I
waiting to
just
see
spoke
what
to
happened.
Amanda today at the MPO, and she was saying that at this point in time, it's gonna be June 3rd.
The commission meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
So she told me today.
And we'll just make sure I know I've told Commissioner McCoy here that, I'm happy to attend with him and, be, an additional, information point on, participating in some of the discussion over the last few months.
Susan?
The Walnut Creek Watershed Management Authority met to review the implementation plan for the next 5 years. Primarily guidelines. It was helpful to have Ray there. We might want a presentation to the council at some point, I think, just to understand what's in there. And otherwise feel comfortable with that. I'm on the finance committee for Bravo, and we met earlier this week. And there was conversation about changes that were coming, such as being passed tonight. And so people understand that. There was conversation in general about other fiscal impacts, including this past the Bravo Gala that happened in February. You know, it's getting to a point where there's a question about whether it breaks. And I think the reduction in people at the tables was a little bit of an impact. The effort to try to increase sponsorship costs along with the reduction in numbers that can attend had some impact. And so there is the potential that that event won't happen. So that's kind of a question mark. Moving forward,
What's the bottom line this year? Did they break even?
yes, I think so, but it was close. I
That's
don't remember.
should be a
specifically.
fundraiser. That's the idea. behind it.
Yeah, and that's part of the trouble. It has been perceived that it's a fundraiser, but it's a little bit more of a break even. It's been billed as a celebration of what it is that we're supporting through Bravo. We definitely don't want to get to the point where it's a drag on the bottom line. So I would say stay tuned. There will be evaluation along the way of what that looks like.
Thanks, Susan. Eric?
Got a couple of things, Mayor. Councilwoman Judkins and I attended a ribbon cutting of Soma Medical, and I'll tell you, get a chance to see it. It's really a beautiful building. I know that came before the council, and we had a good conversation about that. But they really did a wonderful job, and Dr. Kandalian, Dr. Harry, just a tremendous asset to the community. So I also attended a ribbon cutting for Country Financial attended the Dallas County Emergency Management meeting where they talked a little bit about funding with FEMA and some of the things that Susan, we talked about in Washington DC. There was some concern there. I know that they talked about thresholds. We're going to quadruple for assistance from FEMA. So there's concerns. Yeah, so there's some concerns there from a FEMA and a disaster mitigation perspective. Was on the budget committee for Catch Des Moines. We too discussed current situation with the 28E. I think it was expected that the motion was going to pass. And so that was built into the budget. If anyone wants to see the budget, it's pretty much a status quo budget. I'm glad to send it to them, but I thought they did a nice job considering the financial shortfalls expected. It's going to be okay this year. They've eliminated some trips. They're not going to, one of the positions, they're not going to backfill it. So they're taking the necessary budgetary measures to conform with this reality of a lower hotel motel tax revenues. Next year is really going to be 27 is going to be probably the key year where they'll have to make some real modifications there. Councilwoman Judkins and Pete and I attended the Washington DC trip where I felt very positive about it. I think Susan and Pete did a tremendous job, and I think we talked a little bit about the results of that. Continued to have dialogue with and regionalism conversations with our neighboring cities and of course with our elected officials. I thought it all went very well. And again, I think it's another opportunity of Clive having some great influence on the metropolitan region. And we're very well regarded by both of our senators and our congressmen. So I thought overall it was a good investment. We spent a lot of time and money to do that, but I really felt strongly that it was a good investment. That's it, man.
Thanks, Eric. Ted.
All right, a couple of things. MPO. So we had the Iowa DOT come and brief us on a lot of the major projects that are going on around the metro. And if you've driven around the metro at all, you know there's a ton of projects going on right now. She did mention that 8035 interchange at Hickman is probably the biggest one that's going on. And that hopefully it will be done by the end of 2027. And then actually in 2026, they're actually going to initiate the Southwest Mixmaster project, which she assured me, because I asked her very specifically, that the traffic impact portion of that project won't occur until after the Hickman interchange is done. So we shall see.
We've asked the same question.
Yeah. So that's, but
It's all offline off the main line
right.
the first year.
But one of the things that they'll be doing at the Southwest Mixmasters is, if you're going down south down 8035 and you got to go 235 east to downtown, you've got to kind of do that loop. Well, there's going to be a flyover now, kind of like we have up at 141, right? Or the Northwest Mixmaster. So some big changes that will come there that will improve it for sure. But as we all know, we're looking at many years of construction consecutively, as long as they don't do it simultaneously. So
That one's flat out dangerous though, right? I make fun of it.
it is very dangerous.
That one is a true prayer.
Well, that and
Get over to the right.
going out to Waukee
sure.
too, right? I mean, so all of that is going to be redesigned and be redone. So that's a good thing. The Safe Streets that Matt mentioned, we've got basically $25 million grant, federal grant for the region that we can all apply for. Clive has two of those. One is, it's Clive Urbandale for 86th Street, the pedestrian enhancement. So I'm assuming that's the crosswalks and things of that nature that we've talked about as strategic planning. It's a total cost of $1 million. The grant request is for $800,000. And then we also have West Des Moines Clive University Avenue corridor safety feasibility study. That is a $500,000 cost. That the grant is for $400,000. So about 1.2 for our request out of that 25 million. And then we do have a local match of, I think it's about 150,000 that if we were to receive those, we'd have to match that up to 150,000. So
And that'll be the act that you all would, that would be the resolution is committing to the local match.
Okay, so that's what's
It'll come
coming.
before you at the next
All
council.
right.
meeting.
Who will vote, would MPO vote on how to allocate that money, so we still need to get.
So
Give us that, or?
no, basically, we voted in total today for all the member projects that totaled 24.8 million and the max was 25. So hopefully if we get that, then
Yeah, we do get it.
then everyone gets, it, right? So that's the hope. So that's that. And then lastly, you guys have heard me talk in the past about Highway 5 and 69 and converting that into an interstate for economic development reasons, GPS reasons. Getting that interstate designation just provides a lot of benefits to the region. Well, the Iowa legislature passed we need two exceptions to make that happen that have been roadblocks to getting there. And the MPO has been working on this since I've been on the MPO, I think. I mean, it's been over a decade. But the state minimum speed is 40 miles per hour for an interstate. Well, the farmers that use that doesn't work for them. And so the ag community has been completely against it. The state legislature passed, and Kim Reynolds is supposed to sign here soon, a bill that creates an exception for that. And then the second step is that federal weight limit for an interstate is 80,000 pounds, which again, does not work for the ag community. But we've been told that it's a slam dunk at the federal level. Sherry at Grassley's office is leading the charge on that. So we all have full confidence that she'll get that to the finish line. And she's assured us that it's basically a slam dunk. So we got to get through that. And then we've got to do, of course, we got the environmental studies and all that stuff. But the point is that we got through the first big hurdle to finally make this a reality where it becomes an actual interstate. And so now we can have economic development and all the economic analysis that goes into, these big planners for where they're going to put their shopping centers and whatever. They want to be near an interstate, right? And so that's going to allow and facilitate that type of economic development along that entire corridor, 5 up to 65, up to 8035. So, and that will be called 435. That will be the new interstate once it gets christened and completed. So, so that's MPO. Metro Waste has a really interesting new program, an appliance resale program. So where the Metro Waste takes in these appliances, the vast majority of the parts are fully functional and could work. But the way it's done now is it's just sent to the scrap heap, right? So what Metro Waste is now doing is taking those parts and putting them on eBay and reselling them for revenue. So a very creative program, just in its genesis, starting out, I think, 1 month.
Yeah.
So
Where does that revenue go?
well, so it goes to a nonprofit, and maybe you can give some more details on this, called Growing Green Communities. And that was a nonprofit that was going to go away if it didn't replenish its revenues, right? So this is a way to resuscitate that nonprofit. So I don't know if you have any more details on
The
that.
nonprofit will be, the new board is being developed now. Our COO, deputy director, will be leading that nonprofit. It will be a separate board, independent. And if that money is intended to go back to its member cities and counties, right? So that'll get a new twist on ecological environmental projects, that all that money going back to the cities and the county that are members, which is a different twist. It used to be a free for all of anybody applying for that, but you'll have to have a partner with one of our member cities or county to do a project.
Kind of a neat new program that, takes advantage of something that otherwise would have just gone to the scrap heap, right? So it makes a lot of sense. Last thing on Metro Waste, Metro Park West in Perry has been recently renovated and has opened up with some nice new renovations. And then last thing, Personnel Committee met this morning. We did Matt's review,
And as you would expect, it's a very good review. So at the next council meeting, and we will be providing you guys with all the details for Matt's review so that you can see all of those. And then next meeting, we'll have his contract renewal.
Isn't our contracts up this year, correct, or whatever it is?
Yes. We've now revised that to be a 3-year term contract. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thanks, Ted. Brianna?
Thank you to the council for this appointment. I'm excited to get going, to get learning on more city things. The Board of Adjustment's been really fun. I've really enjoyed that. I'll miss it a little. But I think this will be good work, and I'm excited to get started.
Well, and I guess we'll be working on filling that vacancy.
Oh, Board of Adjustment, that is correct. We'll have to get an official resignation from the board.
Oh, okay. I'll do that.
She didn't know that yet, though, until I just brought it up, so we'll get working on
Yeah,
that.
legal counsel?
All right, I have one more alibi, one more clarification. The fireworks legislation cross-references 727.2 and subsection 4 of that statute does have some limitations that still carry on. So for example, there's some hours limitations in that subsection, and there is a provision that that restricts a person to only using fireworks on their own real property or that real property of someone else who has consented. So one thing I might explore for the city is if you would like me to not research, but further evaluate that as an
Value
option.
of research. Mike?
Maybe that's an option you could look at. So I just wanted to put that out there again, that I think there are some already limitations built in. Yes, the legislature was very clear, on these days, but it still retains some of the limitations from 727.
I guess some of my concern though on that is,
I should have opened that.
yeah, no, you shouldn't open that up. Because, look, I'm indifferent on all this. The legislators have done the law, passed the law. I don't light out fireworks, but they're fun. They certainly are. It's an exciting thing to do. And, but, I think we've all taken the stance in the past, and the police chief would probably stay in this lane at this time, is we're not going to enforce everyone. We're not going to go write tickets to them. If we are, let's do it. But it's everyone gets a ticket. If you're not, what is all the laws and exemptions and all this other stuff going to be for if we're not enforcing it anyhow, right? And so writing all this code and writing all this stuff, to me, for something that's 3 days a year, again, it annoys me. It does, but there's not a lot we can do with the legislators.
The reason why you have the code is so that you can enforce it in the event that it's needed. It's not that you're proactively, trying to find people to the site. It's that in the event that you need it, because it's being abused, you have the code there in place to do it.
But I think what legal counsel is pointing to is what Pete pointed to earlier, the damage to the parks. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of potential damage to the parks. And I thought I was hearing legal counsel say that we may have the ability to restrict.
That is what I'm saying.
For personal property.
Yeah.
What I'm
Parks
saying is
from
you
public.
may have the ability to restrict it
Yeah.
from public property or from the public parks, even though the statute that was passed today says you may not limit. It does incorporate this qualification that there needs to be consent for the use on that property. So I'd like to explore.
Hours.
It does put them. Legislators would come right back.
9 a.m. to
And they
11
may,
p.m.
it's specific based on whichever day it is, Councilman.
Oh,
So 11 p.m. on the 4th, 12:30 a.m. on New Year's Eve, for example.
Okay. Chris, you mentioned this, quick clarification, you said that personal property or other property with the consent of someone else. What
That's-
about public streets?
That's the way I read this, Councilmember Klein.
What about public streets? though?
My comment is, I believe you could restrain or restrict, right? You're not consenting to the use of them on your streets. I have to compare that though in the friction of this new statute, but the new statute seems to exempt this as these limitations are allowed.
Keeps
Even though
that
we say you
exemption.
can't limit, these are still there. That's my current interpretation as of today, and I apologize as we went through this live. I think that gives us something to look at as an option if that's the direction of the council.
Do we want to protect our parks?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
That's true.
there you have it.
thank you.
There may, sort of building on Councilman McCoy's point, moving beyond just the ordinance, digging down what has kind of become normative here among our neighboring communities happens. But it could be that our friends in Waukee and other places where they've been doing this for a while already have some of these sort of norms built in and language that we can use. And what a great idea. That's another good example of regionalism. If people are sort of thinking, oh, my neighborhood's next to this Waukee neighborhood or this Urbandale neighborhood, we all kind of living by the same rules, or just good basics of keeping it safe, keeping it respectful, keeping the hours under control. That can help us quite a bit with our storytelling and getting normative behavior.
And that could be a good issue for Matt, John, as well, to, to craft something or have some type of cohesive policy that extends across the great Urbandale or greater metropolitan region over here that we could, that affects everyone.
Regardless, it'll be a noisy couple of days later on this summer.
So,
That's
Well,
right. Assistant City Manager hates freedom. What's going on?
I'll use that segue as far as regional cooperation to mention Central Iowa Waterworks. I attended the TACI, Taxpayers Association Central Iowa meeting, where they were given an award recognizing what an innovative thing it was to have all the water resources pooled together under Central Iowa Waterworks. I mean, there'll be a number of awards, and this will be just the first of many, I think, that CIWW will receive recognizing that achievement. So wanted to mention that. Anything else we have for the good of the order this evening? Hearing none, we'll adjourn at 7:58.